Now, millions of Americans have been warned to prepare for extreme temperatures. A heat dome is already smothering the Midwest and is expected to expand to much of the rest of the country over the coming days. We'll have more on that in a moment from Michael Mann, Professor of Earth and Environmental Science at the University of Pennsylvania. But Spain and France have also seen roaring temperatures, and temperatures in Paris are above 30 degrees Celsius, with the French weather agency reporting the country is experiencing a heat wave there. And an amber heat health alert will remain in force in England until Monday, as temperatures are forecast to be about 10 degrees above average for this time of year. In fact, our colleagues at BBC Weather have said that a place called Charlwood in Surrey has reached 32.6 degrees, making it the UK and England's warmest day of the year so far. Well, the Met Office has also issued separate warnings for thunderstorms over this weekend. Sam Harrison reports.
It's not often the longest day of the year and the hottest day of the year so far collide. But thousands were out celebrating solstice at Stonehenge this morning, enjoying the early heat after overnight temperatures remained high.
It's beautiful. Sunrise is beautiful. It's picture perfect.
You stand in front of these stones and you feel that weight of history. Thousands of years people have been gathering, and it's incredibly special.
Throughout the day, temperatures have risen. These swimmers in Hampstead Heath taking advantage of the cool water as the intense heat kicks in. Some areas in the southeast of England could reach 34 degrees Celsius, triggering an amber heat warning and signalling a rise in demand for health services. Areas like this are experiencing the height of this heat wave, with people encouraged to enjoy this sun in a responsible manner. But this amber alert isn't the only warning in play today, with some areas of the country experiencing extreme variations in weather. The sunshine might be blistering for people now, but thunderstorms could roll in with the hot conditions. A yellow storm warning is in place for northern England, North Wales and southern Scotland, with flash flooding and intense lightning spells possible.
You might expect to see thunderstorms where temperatures are highest, but what's happening is before things start to change in our weather, we've got an area of low pressure closing by, and that's changing the atmosphere a little bit across some northern and western areas. And that, combining with the heat and humidity they have, are why it's these areas seeing the storms and not the areas that see the highest temperatures.
A mixed bag of warnings then, with intense heat on the cards. The scorching summer weather continues. Sam Harrison, BBC News.
Well, let's speak to Michael Mann, Presidential Distinguished Professor of Earth and Environmental Science at the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you for being with us. What is causing, first of all, the heat dome in the United States? And what exactly is a heat dome?
Yeah, a heat dome is an area of deep, high pressure, not just at the surface, but all the way up through the atmosphere. And it's associated with descending, very hot, dry air. And so when you get sort of wiggles, those meanders in the jet stream, the troughs or the low pressure areas, and the ridges are the high pressure areas. And a heat dome is just a very intense ridge in the atmosphere. We tend to see these in the summer, but often what happens, and we're seeing that right now, is that those wiggles in the jet stream, not only do they get high in amplitude, so you get a big ridge, you get a heat dome, but it remains locked in place, like we're seeing right now in Europe, the UK, and like we're seeing here in North America. And we think climate change is actually favoring that sort of configuration in the atmosphere.
So the heat in the US and Europe is all linked, is that right?
Yeah, it's part of a large-scale wave pattern in the atmosphere, and that large-scale wave pattern is becoming more common with each summer. In fact, we just published a study a week ago in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showing that there has been a tripling in the frequency of these sorts of events, from about 1 per summer in the Northern Hemisphere 70 years ago to now about 3 of these per summer on average.
And if we continue with carbon emissions as they are, what is likely to be the forecast for these temperature rises over the coming years? Is it possible to say that?
Yeah, and so there are sort of 2 important pieces here. One is pretty simple. You make the planet hotter, you're going to have more frequent and intense heat extremes. Climate models capture that very well. They predict that to happen. We're seeing that happen. But there's another phenomenon, as I alluded to, that's also at work. and it's these patterns in the jet stream. And what our work shows is that the pattern of warming, where we're seeing more warming in the Arctic than we are seeing at lower latitudes, that changes the temperature difference from the middle latitudes to the Arctic region, and that influences the behavior of the jet stream. And under certain conditions, the jet stream will get locked into one of those very stable, wiggly patterns, and that's becoming more common. It's an ingredient that isn't well captured in the climate models. So if anything, what this tells us is that we could be in store for even more frequent heat extremes of this sort, and even worse heat extremes, if we continue to warm the planet.
And can you just give us a sense of how high temperatures could go in the US and Europe, for example?
Well, some of the model simulations, and again, they don't capture all of the relevant mechanisms, so these might be underestimates, but you can think of sort of the hottest day that you've ever experienced in the UK, like a 40-degree-Celsius day. That would be a record in any year. That sort of extreme could become commonplace, where we might see dozens of those sorts of days over the course of a typical summer in the future, decades from now. Again, if we continue to burn fossil fuels and we continue to warm the planet, the good news here is that if we stop burning fossil fuels, if we transition away from fossil fuel burning, we can stop the warming of the surface of the planet and the exacerbation of these sorts of weather extremes.
And we're seeing even higher temperatures, of course, in parts of Asia and Africa. What's the forecast there?
Well, again, these large-scale patterns mean that we see extremes simultaneously in different parts of the world across the northern hemisphere. So you might have a ridge in the, one of these heat domes in North America, another one in the UK, but somewhere else, in Africa, in Asia, you might see the flip side of that, a deep trough, a low-pressure center associated with extreme flooding. And both of those sorts of extremes are becoming more common, again, as we continue to warm the planet.
Michael Mann, I wish we had a bit more time, but thank you so much. Really grateful to you for your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.